All set, Katie?
Yeah, we have a few members of the public are
Okay,
joining.
good. Well, let's start first with a call to order. It is, wow, what is it? Wednesday, April 12th, at 6:02 p.m. We're calling the Ad Hoc Sustainability and Resilience Committee of the Common Council to order. And I'll just make notice of who are council members who are here. I see Josh Goldstein and Tom Livingston, Barbara Smith, Darlene Young, me, Chair Lisa Shanahan. I'll note other people as they join us. And our first matter would be public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to be heard?
Diane Lauricella has raised her hand.
Okay. So if you could unmute her, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Oh,
There she goes. You're still muted, Diane, but you're down on the panel.
I have a slow old computer. Can you hear me?
We can hear and see you.
Oh, wow. This is great. Anyway, good afternoon, good evening. It's a beautiful day, and I thank you for allowing this to be virtual. I don't know when you're going to go hybrid but I'm here today because I was perusing through the website of the city and saw that we were going to be discussing additionally some very important things. I look forward to listening to my colleagues who are also with me on the Water Quality Committee. I wanted just to highlight a couple of things that I wanted to urge you to spend time on drilling down, so to speak, or at least looking more deeply in this list, this general list that the Water Quality Committee has put together. This is, of course, we put these together in 2022, but it is for 2023 going forward, of course. I think the city, in all the 35 plus years I've lived here, we need a more holistic approach to our sustainability and environmental matters. I think that in looking at the list that we put forth, I wanted to highlight, of course, number one, and I do say it's a multifaceted issue. And number 14 relates to green infrastructure. I wanted to urge this committee to take a look also at our draft zoning regulations, because green infrastructure should be and can be built into select zones, and it hadn't done so. So it's something that to highlight, because we really have to get moving. The city of New Haven has been working on green infrastructure on their city streets for at least 10 years, and we have some catching up to do. I know we do have some current projects, but they are, you can count them, they're very small amount, but we're getting there, but we have to go faster because climate change is urgent. Number 15 is near and dear to my heart, talking about ongoing pollution concerns for both surface and groundwater. Now, I think there are some typos in this particular list. I don't know if this is the final list, and I'll speak with Louise and Dick later, and of course our chairman, because this seems to have left out some important things. The issue with number 15 is not just drinking water. Also has to do with soil contamination from our legacy industrial past. Most sites have been cleaned up, but there are some still awaiting action, and they have to do with public safety and health in addition to environmental health. Number 17, of course, Stormwater Authority. I know that the NRWA and Louise put together, and Bill Lucy has put together a wonderful method to pay for our upgrades. The thing is, I haven't seen a sense of urgency to get on this through the city's Finance and Claims Committee of the Common Council and our budget making process. So if this committee could maybe elevate the issues that I just mentioned so that we have money to pay for them, set it aside, I do believe that we can get caught up and indeed meet the sense of urgency that many of your fellow citizens feel on this issue, as well as everybody on this call. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. I just wanted to mention that I think it was at our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we did have a presentation on the Stormwater Authority. So we share your urgency about that. Katie, is there anybody else who has their hand raised? You're muted as well.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Miss Lynelle Jones would also like to speak.
Okay.
Public health and safety is on your agenda today, so thank you for my 3 minutes of public comment. My name is Lynelle Jones. I've owned 10 Point Road with my husband since 1986, and we've also owned 8 Point Road and 2.5 Nathan Hale Drive for about 9 years in the 90s. As the Sustainability and Resilience Committee, you exist because Connecticut waterfront municipalities have been advised to prepare for stronger and wetter storms. CIRCA, the Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation, identified Norwalk as one of the most vulnerable in Connecticut to rising tides and stormwater surges. So why is Norwalk only looking at FEMA standards for flooding, not coastal area management, CAM, or Connecticut coastal wetland regulations? FEMA protects buildings, not people. Who's thinking about public health and safety? This is why CAM, the the Coastal Area Management Act, and Connecticut wetland regulations exist. Public health and safety is also covered in Norwalk's Harbor Management Plan, but the Harbor Management Commission's recent letter to P&Z and Conservation about One Cemetery Street requesting information was ignored, just like CAM requirements. The flood will come, buildings will stand, poor people will wash away. Is this our plan? Nuisance prevention means a landowner cannot, whether they are a big developer or a resident with a history of getting forgiveness before permission, fill wetlands or land surrounding wetlands without a proper review or proper permit or proper CAM review. FEMA flood standards do not satisfy a municipality's responsibility for public health and safety, and the City of Norwalk's hazard mitigation plan does not cover public health and safety for floods over 1/2 foot, much less 3 or 4 feet. Proper understanding and enforcement of CAM and Connecticut coastal regulations, the laws protecting public health and safety during floods, means training of directors, staff, and commissioners. Why has the Norwalk Conservation Office, who works closely with P&Z and redevelopment, not trained staff, directors, and commissioners? Required OLISP filings, complete CAM applications, including coastal site plan reviews with actual maps, proper permits, do not exist. Why are my complaints about Nathan Hale Drive still outstanding? For the past 2 years, I've been viciously attacked, slandered by many, including Attorney Blank, an ex-P&Z commissioner and favored Norwalk land use attorney, for questioning Nathan Hale Drive. Yet, the Norwalk Yacht Club 10 Nathan Hale Drive was recently given an NOV from DEEP, negotiated down from a consent decree with all their lawyers, by the way, requiring them to obtain the proper required permit and adopt a stormwater management plan, 64 pages. Train staff, keep weekly records and twice a year test for bacteria and minerals. Please remember, decisions made today to approve increased density in the flood zone and not enforce complaints affect tomorrow's public health and safety, and this could be a liability for our city. Thank you. Finally, having read your agenda, I ask the water quality reps to please explain what number 3 in 2022 in their recommendations mean. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Anyone else, Katie?
No, that is it.
That's great. So I'm going to close public participation at this time. And I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 8th, 2023. Mr. Livingston, does anyone have any changes or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as filed. That's great. Okay, so moving to the business of the meeting, we're going to start with Brian to give us an update on the smart city assessment, and then we'll move on to Louise and Dick.
All right, good.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thanks. So yeah, I just want to provide a brief update on the smart city assessment we've been working on with the city, as well as just a quick one on the climate action plan, where we stand on both. So we've been working with DKSR. It's that firm from Berlin that we had engaged to help us sort of take a look at our IT systems, look at them within the context of what can we do to sort of use data, help drive decisions, and also promote sustainability. One of the things that they also have been working on is what came out of this group is a benchmarking exercise where we're taking a look at key environmental standards, relative internationally accepted environmental standards. So that work we're actually expecting to be done this week. They've done a lot of work with the research. We did a lot of work, pulling data from the city, and we'll be ready to share that. I think we might wait to combine that with our overall findings for this group. We would have to do it obviously in the morning, probably at some point, just given the time change. I think it'll be a very interesting exercise because they're going to compare some of the stuff that we've been working on, our metrics, to other parts around in Germany and elsewhere. I think it'll be really, really fruitful exercise. So we're looking forward to that. We had a good series of workshops with them as well with IT. So we did separated it between department heads and chiefs to kind of ascertain where people think they are in terms of using data as part of their decision making, using technology as part of their workflows. We have some really interesting findings. Again, we'll include that as part of the overall report when we come out. In terms of the climate action plan, we started the project. They've been doing mostly work, sort of diving into reports and existing conditions and trying to determine all of the different projects and statuses. As we discussed, they conducted an initial just sort of kickoff introductory workshop yesterday. We're planning to meet with them on Friday to actually talk about the outcome of that and try to adjust some of the public outreach and workflows from that as well, which we've already started that discussion. So that's pretty much the general update. I'm happy to answer any questions, but there's going to be more to come in the next couple of months here.
Great. No one has any questions. We can move into the presentation that Louise and Dick Harris are going to make about the Water Quality Commission's recommendations.
No questions, but Brian, that sounds awesome. Appreciate the update.
It does sound awesome.
Does sound good. Should I share screen now?
Yes, if you would.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Sorry. Uh-oh. Play from start. Okay. So we're not really here to go over details of the whole mayor's water quality list. Just to respond to Lynelle's question, I think maybe the next mayor's water quality meeting is a good place to talk about that. We really are here to talk about, well, we initially, that it came up because of PFAS testing that Dick and that Norm, Bloom, and Sun and NRWA have done of the Norwalk River. So we're going to talk about that. And then we wanted to just some highlights from that list of recommendations that we wanted to go over, just to, I don't know, let you guys know these are the things that we're out there worrying about. The Stormwater Authority possibility, continued focus on restoring the tree canopy, issues with Eversource. We're just going to touch on these, and then our pesticide concerns. So I'm going to let Dick take it away to talk about the PFAS, why we're worried about PFAS.
Louise, all I can see here is a big picture. It says Zoom in the middle.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Oh, you don't see my screen?
No, we
No.
don't. We just see the Zoom.
Uh-oh, hold on. Sorry. Let me share.
I think we saw your screen. It wasn't this.
There we
one.
go.
There you
That's
go.
what we want.
You got
Okay.
it now?
We
Okay,
do.
weird. So sorry. Okay, Dick, you want to take it away? We're just,
Yeah, I work for Norman Bloom, and one of my main jobs is to watch out for any problems that may be impacting the health of the oyster business. And PFAS testing has been a subject that's been kicked around in the back, not too much emphasis until lately, and now it's become a firestorm. And the need for PFAS testing will help protect drinking water, and the industry sees the threat. Concerns found in oysters in Florida, 4 waterways now. We're looking at Norwalk River, We want to do Saugatuck. We've done 5 Mile River. And we also want to do a repeat of Silver Mine River. Our concerns are that Norwalk wants to add 4 additional turf fields known to contain PFAS, and 1 to 3 additional fields are planned for Wilton. All but 1 are a few feet from the Norwalk River. And you got the next slide? We have leaned heavily on a guy named Graham Peasley, who's an expert in turf nationwide. He is a professor in physics at Notre Dame, Indiana, and he's done extensive work on turf fields as far as analyzing the various various components of PFAS. And our baseline testing shows a presence of PFAS at the Wilton and Norwalk sites, and also low levels in Norwalk's drinking water. We need additional testing so that we can look at these in detail. This is the Broad River fields. This is over on Silver Mine Avenue. And I'm looking to the west, and right in front of you, you can see a storm drain. That storm drain takes the discharge of that street and will also take the discharge of the new fields. And from there, a pipe runs to the Norwalk River. And I want you to just, point that out. You can see the stream that goes under the fields. And there's several problems with this whole site. First of all, it's too close to the river. Secondly, look at the Kellogg-Deering well fields, the first taxing district. Look where they're located. They're located in a location where they're going to catch runoff from these fields. If they're not, and they're catching runoff now. And can you give me the next slide? All right, this is what we found to date. On the left, you will see a sketch of the pipe coming from under the fields where it discharges into a marsh. That's our site 1 on the graph. Site 2 is where the marsh dumps into the Norwalk River. 3 is just to the north of the Route 123 bridge. And 4 is just south of the Broad River Bridge. What I wanted to point out to you is, look where it says Connecticut Wells regulations, billions per NGL, parts per trillion. And you'll see that the main players, the ones that cause the most problem, PFOA and PFOS, are given a value of 16 and 10. That's parts per trillion. Now you say, well, that doesn't sound like much. Well, up until last June, the guidelines was 70 parts per trillion for those 2 products. And then the EPA came out with what we call a health advisory. And you'll see that, and it's not up there. The health advisory said, well, that's really not right. PFOA should be at 0.004 parts per trillion and PFOS 0.02 parts per trillion. In other words, nothing. There is no more baseline according to them. Well, that caused the state of panic, and the state has come back with those numbers you see there now, the 49, the 16, the 10, and the 12. That's the current rating. Well, the EPA, again, last week said, well, no, we think we're going to put those 2 bad guys at 4 parts per trillion. In other words, they took a big step backwards, and that isn't due to go into effect until September of 2024. And you have 3 months after that to comply. So the whole thing has been very much confused, numbers flying around, but the baseline is it doesn't take much PFOS to cause a lot of problem. For instance, if you look at those sites, you'll see that many of those numbers are approaching 8, 5, 6. They're up there already. This is in the groundwater. This has nothing to do with tap water. This is a separate, distinct category. The state has yet to give out guidance in that area. The only guidance so far has been the city wells, as I just pointed out. So if those wells are in an environment of that kind, obviously some of it's going to be seeping into the wells. You should know that they have closed temporarily 2 of the 3 of the wells in there because they did not meet the criteria. And that's the old criteria of 70 parts per trillion. So these are serious numbers. And I just think it's wise to look at that and say, where did all this come from? Well, our friend, Mr. Peasley, looked at a aerial photo and found a firehouse not too far away. And we think the firehouse in their training for using foam may have been responsible for what's happened here. But this is the first site, and I was amazed. And by the way, expensive to get these sites done is $295 per sample. So a lot of work isn't going to be done unless there's money to back it up. Louise and I split the cost on this first bunch, but it's important that you take a look at what's there. And here's an aerial view of the thing. I'm sorry, this is the next one, right, Louise?
Yeah, I just thought we could
Okay.
talk about Wilton, just because it's adding to the river. You know, it's our concern as well, because we're downriver.
Okay, so now we're looking at Wilton. And there you can see it is what's the name of the field again? I forgot.
It's Allen's Meadow. Yeah, it's right
Allen
here.
Meadows Field.
And this
The
brook.
problem with that one is, number one, they have community gardens at the far end of this field. They're subject to pollution. It has a stream, Getson Brook, that runs completely around the field and dumps into the Norwalk River. And on the far east side, there are wells over here that belong to Aquarian and have been shut down temporarily. So Louise talked to Aquarian and told them, you know, what's your idea about them putting fields in here? They said they didn't think it was a good idea, right, Louise?
They said they were concerned. Yeah, I mean, those wells are closed, so they're not, you know, piping up too much about it, but they were very concerned and don't think it's a good idea to put artificial turf over the aquifer that feeds those wells. And then this is confusing. Dick, should I do this when it's just, there's been a lot of confusion with the whole issue over the turf fields in Wilton in the papers. So Dick and I hired York Laboratories out of Stratford to test the water over the whole river. And especially here, we tested above where the existing 2 turf fields are in Wilton. And then we also tested the retention pond that they drain into. And we found, you can see the numbers over here, we found, you know, twice as much PFAS when you add the total PFAS, different chemicals, twice as much in this retention pond as we did upriver. So that was just a one-time, you know, test to see what we would find. And the town kind of went crazy and hired their own testers. And their numbers for surface water very, very similar to ours. They did 2 tests of that retention pond and found actually 3 times and 5 times the amount of PFAS that they found above the fields. They also tested 2 manholes, one kind of over here next to Lily Field, and then one next to this other artificial turf field. 2 manholes that are attached to underground drains where they didn't find PFAS. And then those are the numbers that those are the tests that they're focusing on. When you see in the hour, you know, Wilton found no PFAS around their turf fields, they are only looking at those 2 tests. All of the surface water has PFAS. So I think that what we're seeing in Wilton is a little bit of a warning. You know, it's hard to know if runoff is coming from other places into this retention pond or not. You know, it's inconclusive, the testing in terms of what we know about PFAS in, you know, getting into the water from those fields. But we know from the work at Notre Dame, this guy, Dr. Peasley and his team, they've tested dozens and dozens of artificial turf fields. They found PFAS in all of them. Every blade of grass is coated in PFAS, and every level of the field has PFAS. The machines that make it are lubricated with PFAS. So he has also done multiple testing sites over time and seen that as these fields wear down, more and more PFAS drains off into the soil and into the water. So it's a known issue. And I just think for Norwalk, since it's across from drinking water, well, here are the drinking water numbers. Since it's across from drinking water site and right next to the Norwalk River, it's just not a great spot for us to put 3 artificial turf fields.
Why are we worried about PFAS, Louise? What's wrong with PFAS? Why are we concerned about PFAS?
I'll tell you why we're concerned, because it doesn't leave the human body for 8 years. Okay, you can get a metal like lead or cadmium, and they are usually flushed out within 60 days. PFAS stays in the body for 8 years. So the fact that we're talking about parts per trillion, that doesn't seem like much until you look at the accumulation time. And they've just unearthed another case where 6 ball players that belonged to the Phillies played on a field back in 1980, and all 6 died in their 40s from a very rare brain cancer, which they're tracing back to those fields. And that's just the beginning. We're looking at kidneys, liver, you're looking at thyroid problems, you're looking at developmental problems for young people. And it's getting to a point where the coal is being really thrown on here. We just can't keep looking the other way. People get injured on these fields. Their temperatures go up as high as 160 degrees, not healthy to play on them in the summer. There's no way to dispose of them. They're only 8 years of usable use. And then they go, if they get disposed of, there's only one place in the world that does it, and that's Denmark.
Yeah, there's no
So
way to dispose of them.
They get piled up on the edge of landfills, and there they sit. And when they're there, they devote PFAS to the landfills, and the landfills are a big contributor to that product. So would you put the river up for Norwalk?
Here, we've got a couple questions from members. I see Barbara Smith has her hand up, and then Mr.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, Louise, I mean, you pointed out, what I was going to comment on is that is the confusion about Wilton, because it's in the paper again today that they found no toxins, and it was in the paper that they approved unanimously the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
Field.
It's going to go to a vote now. So
Apparently it did. That's what the hours reporting, that they voted unanimously to approve it.
Right, I think it goes to the residents now.
yeah, it goes to the residents now.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Okay. I see. Well, that's a
Here's a view of the Norwalk River starting up in Farmingville Road, going all the way down to Wall Street.
Nick, can I hold you off for 1 second? I feel like we should give like a little bit of understanding of like what PFAS and PFOA are. I mean, we sort of jumped right into like the terminology without a little bit of a background of like what these chemicals are. And we talked a little bit about what they do, but why people are worried about them. So can you just give some definitional?
Yeah, they are one of the
Chairman
Yes.
Hanahan, I have to go. We have a
Yep.
public hearing, 6:30. Sorry.
Yep.
I would
Okay.
really like to hear this. I'll listen to the tape. Thank you.
Thank you.
They are one of the main components of everything that has any degree of being fireproofed, stain-proofed, grease-proofed, and they are in up to 15,000 different products. And over the years, as exceptions have come up, what the industry does is quietly hide them in another product. So you can have them in your pajamas, your rugs, your lipstick, you name it. They are very perversive. They last forever, and they're building up in the environment. And this is a good example right here. And if you look at
I
the
think, no, I think that's very helpful. The one thing that I think would be helpful, and I just haven't really heard yet, and I think I'm actually supposed to be at the same public hearing that Darlene just left to go to. But I do want to ask, let's say the hypothetical that all 4 fields are approved and they use PFAS on the turf to build a field. Let's just assume it gets approved. What is the material difference when you look at the level of PFAS in the water? Like essentially, what would the projected change be?
Well, in the Wilton tests of their water below the 2
Right.
fields they did 2 tests of that retention pond that we know the stadium field drains to. And there were 3 times the amount of PFAS in one test and 5 times in the other test. So, it's all small numbers because it's parts per trillion, but we're talking about tripling the amount of PFAS that's in the surface water. So,
Okay.
The first taxing district is going to be directly dealing with that runoff. And
And I know they are.
Yeah.
I've spoken with them about this before. I guess the thing I'm thinking about is whenever these applications for fields come before us, one thing I think that would be worth knowing is some sort of based on your test, some sort of a statistical projection on what that count might look like should those fields be approved.
So the thing is, it's such an emerging science and, it's hitting the fan now. I mean, Connecticut has a bill in the legislature that looks like it's going to pass this year that is $75 million for municipalities to do testing and remediation of PFAS. So, you know, this is just starting that towns are going to be responsible for cleaning it up. This guy, Graham Peasley, and his research, you know, his grad students are about to come out with a paper that will probably have a lot of that stuff. He's very available. You could ask him to come speak, or you can call him, and he is testing both the fields and the runoff. So he's really at the forefront of what we know about this. And I would refer you to him, basically.
You might go on a little further and say that Maine has banned all the PFAS products, including playing fields, and that Vermont is moving to do the same right now. Those are two states.
Yeah, we were disappointed this year that Connecticut didn't have a broad-reaching bill like the Maine bill. But I feel like next year we will. You know, I mean, honestly, just delaying this for a couple of years to maybe let the industry figure out how to make these with less PFAS or no PFAS, and to figure out what states or what municipalities are going to be on the hook for. I don't know. It just seems like bad timing to put in 3 fields across from drinking water, since it's exploding, this issue right now.
So Mr. Livingston has a question.
Yeah, thank you. So Louise, I saw that the state is holding off on their lease in Wilton, right? And so what are they doing?
So that, you know, they did they were going to do an environmental review. I think they ended up going forward with it.
And they did.
The problem is the state is both, you know, looking at putting aside $75 million to help towns deal with it. And then they're also, on the other hand, offering bonding for these fields. None of them would go in without state support. So it's frustrating, you know, it's very frustrating.
Okay, thanks.
I'm so sorry. I need to go to that other public hearing as well. Thank you so much. And I'll make sure to watch the remaining of the tape.
Okay.
You want to go through the rest of your testing and then we'll move on.
Yeah. So Dick, this is the river. I don't know if you want to talk about this. So you can see that
you've already seen this is the Norwalk River, and you can see the area around Broad Street and the 123 bridge is pretty high. We think that might be due to that fire department randomly testing foam before everybody figured out that it was a problem. The state, to give them credit, has gone to all the firehouses and recovered the foam. They've gone to the airports, they've gone to the railroad yards, and they picked up the foam. And now they're getting into more serious areas like drinking water and testing wells and the rest of that, but it's ongoing and moving fairly slowly because there is no protocol yet for testing surface waters. And
Farmingville Road, just so you know, this is the top of the river. This is the Great Swamp in Ridgefield, and the wastewater treatment plant goes into there. So that may be why the numbers are a bit higher up there as well. So, you know, it's just a huge issue for us to deal with. The oysters industry in Florida is really hurt by this. The oysters there have been found to have PFAS. So one of the things we're worried about is protecting the shellfish industry.
Put up the Silver Mine River.
Can I ask about that?
Yep.
I think it would be helpful for us to understand the impact that this has on this industry in Norwalk. So what does it mean, and Dick, this is for you really, I guess, that the oysters will have PFAS in them? What does that do to your business?
Oh, they're now being listed as toxic products. Oysters are bioaccumulators. They would tend to accumulate this stuff. Whether they eject it or not, nobody really knows. And not enough testing has been done up here yet to ascertain whether it's a problem or not. But my issue is, if we turn our back on this stuff, there's only 2 ways to stop PFAS. One, you eliminate the source, which would be things like playing fields, cosmetics, you name it. 2, you give everybody a filter, because that's where it's going. Those are the 2 choices you have.
But so what did Florida? I'm sorry. What did Florida do with their oyster industry?
I don't know what the final result was.
It was on every news channel. It was in every paper. It was a huge thing. I don't think people are eating them. I mean, I wouldn't eat them.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we know, Dick and I talked to some researchers. We were trying to find out what testing had been done on shellfish, and they are working at UConn. The guy, what was his name? Dick? Chris
Perkins.
Chris Perkins, but they're testing hotspots. So they're testing near airports and places where they know PFAS contamination exists, they're testing shellfish there. So what's going to happen shortly is these probably bad numbers are going to come out because they were testing known hotspots. So what we were thinking is one of the things that would be good would be to test, oysters that are not in recreational areas, but are further out. This is just starting, and we just need to focus on doing some more testing so we know what we're talking about.
A last question, Dick, do you know the size of the oyster industry in Norwalk?
30 million.
30 million?
Yeah. 30
Oh,
million.
that's the state. That's the state. Sorry. What is it in Norwalk?
I'm not really sure. Norman has the biggest slice of it. He has 12,000 acres
All right, well,
and
you know,
32 boats.
if you,
I've always heard that it was a $7 to $8 million.
that's what I'd heard, those numbers too, but I don't know if that's right. Okay, thanks.
Louise, there, I want to show that one right there. There's a group called the River Keepers that have been testing nationwide, and they've been doing a lot of work in the Northeast. And look where Connecticut stands. I think it's very important that you look at that graph, because what it means is work's going on everywhere else except here. And we have all the rivers that nobody knows the answer to right now. And I have to tell you this, the River Keepers looked at 114 rivers across the country. 83% had PFAS contamination. So it's not a small problem.
I just want to add about the Wilton testing. If it would help you guys, I have the Wilton testing. I can forward it. You can look at it yourself. It's easy to see compare the numbers above and below the field. And you'll see that the 2 manholes had nothing and everything else did. So that's our PFAS pitch. And then we just had a couple of other things we wanted to just highlight since we had the chance to speak to you guys. And one was just our support of considering a Stormwater Authority in Norwalk. We did a talk at the library, and we had about 40 people come, and I think it was pretty successful, just trying to educate the public about this idea, and so that we can hopefully have some support if it moves forward in Norwalk. One of the things that was surprising to me in Bill Lucy's talk is that there are just thousands of towns that have this, that do this across 48 states. So Connecticut was the 40th state to make it legal. We're really kind of behind. We're behind on this idea, and it is a new idea that I know is going to take some convincing to get people to accept. But it seems like going forward with our rising sea level issues and stormwater issues and water quality issues and PFAS and all of these costs, that if we had a fund like New London, as you guys know, you already know about this, but they have $4 million to work on these issues. So I just hope that Norwalk will move forward on that. Dick, do you want to say anything else about that?
Okay.
And then I also just wanted to basically thank the city for moving forward on the tree canopy. I think it's the most important thing we can do for sustainability. Really, on the ground, the most important thing we can do, besides maybe testing water. But also the city has just been great partners to all of the volunteer groups. We've actually gotten together in our WA, in our VT, the Tree Alliance and Pollinator Pathway, and we've been working together on tree stuff with the city. So we've gotten organized. I know the city has trees to give away, and we have 3 grants between those 3 groups right now. So, we're moving ahead. I did just read that the Inflation Reduction Act includes $1.5 billion for urban trees put in to mitigate climate effects. And Norwalk actually still needs, I know they're moving ahead with the tree canopy inventory, which is great, and that a master planting plan is going to come out of that. I was just reading what some other cities are doing, and I know that we're not Chicago, we're not as big as Chicago, but Chicago is planting 15,000 trees a year for the next 5 years. So I just want to say, I hope Norwalk's plan is big and bold, sized for Norwalk, but we need to really do something big. This is not just look for some patches where we could put some trees. I hope the master plan is as big as we really need it to be. And then I just want, sorry, Lisa.
Ambitious, I was going to say.
Ambitious, thank
Give
you.
you a little-
Yeah,
I
ambitious.
think a little bit of information is, people might know, we did well, Tom actually we can thank Tom Livingston for this because he was the big advocate to get a tree master plan, a tree management plan, and an inventory plan, and that's underway. I asked for an update on it from our Rec and Parks Department who's overseeing it. They didn't give me they kind of just gave me a list of what it is we're doing. So we're doing an updated tree inventory with data, tree canopy mapping, and with an analysis to identify the types of trees and the distribution, its health, and planting space. They're going to engage with the community about having an equitable distribution of the tree canopy. There's going to be recommended strategies for climate impacts that go along with the trees. And that's pretty much the things that have to do with trees. So I just wanted to share that with people. Louise had asked me to see where we stood on that project.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say one more time, I think that it would make it, just from my experience planting trees, over the last, I don't know, 10 years in Norwalk, that we keep having these droughts, we have hotter and hotter weather, the city is getting hotter and hotter. We really need to invest in a water truck and someone who drives it to water the young trees. If we're going to go forward with a plan like this, I hope it includes that, because Olmsted only waters for 2 years, and we know that is not enough. It's really a problem for, last summer we lost so many trees. So it just seems like with, can we get some Inflation Reduction Act money for a watering truck? That would just go so far. And then, Eversource continuing to take down trees is obviously a problem. And I think, we can work on this too, but just education for the public about their right to say no to Eversource, and to say no to the pesticides that Eversource uses, because we know they use triclopyr. And then the last thing we wanted to talk about just really quickly is pesticides. I don't know if you guys were all familiar with what we learned from the dredging at Pear Tree Point in Darien. Does everybody know about this already, or should I talk about it? So Darien,
I don't know that people know this.
Yeah, Darien just this past year needed to dredge Pear Tree Point for boats to come in and dock, and they hadn't done it. And they'd, I guess, done it previously 20 years ago. And I guess in the past, they've always been able to take the dredge out to the open pits in the ocean. But when the dredge was tested, it was found to be too high in pesticide content. So you can see the numbers down here. So Dick and I looked at this because we've been very worried. Dick is, telling me, you should say Dick, but seeing changes in, marine life.
Yeah, we're seeing lots of changes in marine life. Crustaceans, the species number is way down. The fishermen aren't bringing up rock crabs and Jonah crabs and calico crabs. Yeah, it's not happening. And we think that some of these pesticides are getting into the marine larva end of the business. And it's very subtle, but yet animals are disappearing. And there seems to be, no one has done the research. And once again, when I went around and tried to find someone to do the water testing, surface waters for pesticides, particularly neonicotinoids, nobody wants to touch it. Too expensive, and they're organic tests, and people don't want to do them. So we are up a tree on that one. I'm waiting for results on those 6 cores, because I've asked Cornell University to do an analysis and see if they can find those pesticides in those cores.
Let me back up 1 second though, Dick, and explain what you're talking about. Because so when you look at this list of pesticides of what came up in Darien, it's DDT and chlordane and the pesticides that have been banned for the past 30 years. So we were looking everywhere to see if they had tested for neonicotinoids and chlorpyrifos and the things that are being used now. They don't test for those. They test for these older ones. So out of frustration, Dick was like, well, why don't we just do core samples? So Dick went out and did core samples from Pear Tree Point and Norwalk Harbor, and they are at Cornell now to see if we find neonics. Neonics are, made from nicotine. They have been linked to the severe declines in pollinators, the loss of 3 billion birds in the last 20 years, and more aquatic insects. All of these things end up washing into the water. So neonics kill aquatic insects. They're harming and contaminating water. And now more and more, there are human health effects, especially for pregnant women. This is just another huge problem that we're worried about. And that also is affecting marine life in Norwalk Harbor. So I just want to mention it. We are going to have those core samples coming back, and we'll let you know what we find. But I think for this, it would really just be helpful to just educate, I don't know, the council. Norwalk has done such an amazing thing by banning municipal use of pesticides. Norwalk and Stamford are leading the way, and I think we're going to see change at the state level because of that leadership. There is a bill right now, SB 963, that would ban the use of neonics on golf courses and for ornamental reasons, uses and people's yards. So for non-agricultural purposes. So hopefully that'll pass and we won't have to worry about this issue as much, but it's just an ongoing issue that we need to educate residents about because people use these in their yards to kill grubs. That is the last of my spiel. I just did a little recap of the things that we are hoping you guys will be able to address. The PFAS issue, the synthetic turfs, especially at Broad River, the tree inventory and watering trees, and then pesticide issue. So
Great.
thank you so much for letting us come in here and speak. And there are other recommendations on the Mayor's Water Quality Committee list that I know you have. We just pulled out the few that we were most interested in talking about.
Great. Does anybody else have any further questions for either Dick or Louise? Nope. All good. Well, great. Well, thank you guys so much for putting this all together. We really, that's a goodbye.
That's a goodbye. Thank you.
That's a goodbye. That's a goodbye and thank you. So
All
yeah,
right,
thank you
thanks.
very much everybody
you.
for coming, and that's great. I'm going to run over to the 6th taxing district. So thanks, gang.
Thanks,
Really
everybody.
appreciate it. Thank you very much, Dick and Louise. We'll see you guys on the 26th.
Right.
See you then.
All righty, good. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lisa just left without adjourning.
Motion to adjourn.
Tom, terrific.
Oh,
Barbara,
perfect. There
second.
you go.
Thank you.
All right.
All in favor.
Take
Yeah,
care,
okay.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.